Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 481. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's going on, people?
And I got a new chair, which is not squeaky anymore, so I can make all sorts of movements, and there's no noise.
Let's not though, because
what's wrong with my movements? You don't like my movements, Matt? You don't like my movements?
No, it's look. If you can do the Megan TikTok dance, then we'll talk. From your chair, we'll be good.
Like, you're not the first person to ask me to try.
Yeah.
So you'll not be the first person I say no to. Welcome to the show. It's a DC Comics podcast. We get together to talk about the books that come out this week. And it is a week 5, so it's kind of a weird week. Oh, there's a few books, but I've got Patreon books to do, so I've dumped a bunch of them into this week. So today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman Annual Issue 1. We're also going to be talking about Batman and Robin Year 1, Issue 12. Batman Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, Issue 10. Which is the final issue of that as well. And then I forgot to write it in, but I'm just remembering we're doing the Kryptonite Spectrum, Superman, issue 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right? Issue 3? I'm just adding it in now. Mm-hmm. And then I have some Patreon books to talk about from this month that I need to do, which is Batman The Outsiders issue 28. Which starts a whole new arc. Planetary issue 13, which is a wild bit of lore in that issue. So if you've been enjoying me hearing me talk about that, there's some juicy things to discuss. And then Gideon Falls issue 4, and so that's ongoing as well. And it's still fantastic. Just FYI as a little teaser. But yes, that is what's coming up on the show today. But it is a week 5. It's a weird week. You know, sometimes we even take a week 5 off if it's quiet enough. But there was a busy enough few weeks in this month. I was like, oh, let's just do the week 5. We'll do the few books that come out. Actually, honestly, the bigger concern was actually more that next week would have been huge if we had to do these books with it. So I was like, oh, let's just have the quiet week 5 and, you know, make life easy. But anyway, Matt, how was your Halloween week?
Oh, it was good. Had you know, no trick-or-treaters though last night. Always a bummer. We had one group, and the little girl dressed as Jason, which bless her heart, was more interested in petting our decorative black cat than she was getting candy. So that was great. And you know, I watched a bunch of stuff last night. Showed my wife Talk to Me, which she had never seen. And that went for some, you know, she said she wanted to watch something scary. And we watched, I watched It Follows for the first time since the theater. And let me tell you, time has been kind to that movie.
Oh, it holds up. I watched it at the start of the month. It holds up.
Yeah. And it weirdly is this, when I watched it, I wasn't as versed in the David Lynch of things. But there's like this David Lynch meets John Carpenter vibe to it that I pick up on now. And yeah, let's say my dreams were not pleasant last night because they were very Lynchian. Not a lot of sense being made here. And unnerving all the same. So yeah, that was mine. How was yours?
I was just a busy couple of weeks. Not only did I have extra recordings and editing to do for streams, because we always do extra episodes in October, but David just happened to have time off for the back half of October, so we were getting ahead on the schedule by doing extra recordings these last 2 weeks. So my last 2 weeks were just very hectic, just trying to make sure I fit everything in that I needed to do. Honestly, just between, you know, Patreon TV reviews I had to do and things like that. But I mean, I watched some interesting stuff throughout the month. What I watched on actual Halloween was a dud, but you know, that's okay. Yeah, I watched The Night Flyer, which is a Stephen King adaptation from 1997. And
I remember that VHS cover at my local video store, and yeah, Miguel
Ferrera's in it, which is kind of the main selling point. And you know, that's cool, but it's a dull ass movie. Is basically what it boils down to. But no, I mean, I saw some interesting stuff throughout the month, for sure. But
I believe I actually hit 31 movies for October.
Oh, nice.
So which is nice, which we're doubling up on a lot. I'm also counting. We watched Michael Jackson's Thriller. I'm counting that as a short film.
Okay, that's stretching
14 minutes.
The numbers a bit.
If I don't count that one and I count Tron Ares instead.
No, you can't count that either. No, you hit 30. So yes. I'm sorry, Matt, to tell you this, but you hit 30.
I hit 31. It's okay.
No, you did not. You did not hit 31. No, you did not.
I watched the original Halloween 3 times. All right. So the time spent, 2 of those were on TV because they were on, but fell asleep to it one night. It's weird now. If you would have told me 10 years ago I would find, Halloween soothing, I would have been like, yeah, right. But yeah. So got real close. But yeah, yesterday was spent a lot of movie watching yesterday on the day off. So yeah.
Yeah. So, quiet enough. Hectic enough month really, but quiet enough in terms of anything getting in the way of things. So that's nice at least. But it's always kind of like a bittersweet end to October, because it's like on the one hand it's like, oh, spooky season's over, but on the other hand I'm always so busy in October that it's actually kind of nice to just be like, oh, I get to slow down a little bit now and kind of take things a bit easier.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I love spooky season, but when you love horror movies and you watch a lot of horror movies year round, it's just kind of like, oh, well, not everybody's indulging, and because I still have a list of movies that I've never seen or that I want to revisit of the horror variety. So, yeah, it is. It's like a warm hug is going away, and now we have Thanksgiving, which I do love. You don't have Thanksgiving though, so
no.
You just have fall and then Christmas. So yeah.
Yeah. They have Hatesgiving though.
Yeah. Hatesgiving is 364 days. All right.
Oh dear. Anyway, we'll get into things, everyone. We'll start off with the Kindle rankings, the list formerly known as the Comicsology Top 10. Is what else would we start with? And because DC are very, they're very consistent with their schedule, that they just kind of always have a quiet week 5 because they always sort of plan for those 4 weeks every month. I expect that Marvel's going to dominate this top 10, but what's there? What did come out maybe will be there. So have you got a guess for what number 1 is this week, Matt?
I'm gonna guess the Absolute Batman Annual.
That is correct. That is number 1. Number 2 is Imperial, which is a Marvel event, I think. Number 3 is Jesus Christ, X-Vengers. Piss off with that title. Piss off. X-Vengers.
All I see is Ant-Man is very large, and I understand how his powers work, but there's a very large Ant-Man on that cover, and wow, they're really just crossing over the adjectives and the teams. We're gonna get like Astonishing Avengers soon.
Well, that's fine. I mean, the adjectives, you can swap those around. It's still correct. X-Vengers is just, there's Avengers not a thing. You can be an Avenger. You can, but just Avengers not a thing. It doesn't, anyway. Next up is Expatriate X-Men.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce that word, expatriate.
Yeah. So like an expatriate, like they're no longer part of the country they were part of.
I didn't realize that'd be one word. I assumed that'd just be EX dash and then the word patriot, but I didn't realize there was a
an expatriate word. Like when my dad and his partner moved to Thailand, they were expatriates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. 5 is Thor. Number 6 is Last Halloween. Number 7 is Batman and Robin Year 1. 8 is Cloak and Dagger, 9 is Runaways, and 10 is the Superman Red and Blue special. So, I mean, the 4 books that DC put out all were in the top 10, so, I mean, that's something. But yeah, that's what's there. Also, there was a Turtles Annual this week, apparently. Not by Jason Aaron, though, so it's probably just a very one-shotty thing, so we'll see if I get around to that. But, yeah, obviously, week 5s are weird. Week 5s are weird, as per usual. I mean, Marvel were making up X-Vengers for week 5, so.
Yeah. So I looked at the blurb what that's about. Apparently something happened there that there's now Avengers that have been turned into mutants. And this is that team. So I don't know.
Exciting stuff.
Yep.
I think that'll do it. That'll do it for the Kindle rankings. I have nothing more to add on such shenanigans. Alright, let's get into things, shall we? We'll start off with Absolute Batman Annual Issue 1, Daniel Warren Johnson writing an art on the main story. We'll get to the backups. But I wasn't sure if this was going to be like a very even spread thing, but no, it's very much a main story and then
Yep.
and then backups. Like 30 of the 50 pages is his stuff. Let's just get out of the way. Batman does a one-winged angel. Someone, probably Johnson, is a Kenny Omega fan. I am willing to bet.
So I don't know if we've talked about this, but when I got really into Do a Powerbomb, I went down the Daniel Warren Johnson rabbit hole, and he didn't grow up a wrestling fan. He came to it after his kid was born, and he was up doing late night feedings to give mom a break. Couldn't find anything, asked people what he should watch, and someone recommended the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 tournament, and he was hooked. And I believe at this point, that's where Kenny was on his last hurrah, and so he became a fan of the Japanese style, and has now, become more, been watching wrestling here and there because I do follow him on the socials, and he'll talk about it. He's friends with Brody King, who's one of my, favorite wrestlers right now, which is really cool. And so to see the wrestling community sharing these pages this week, because Batman does the one-winged angel, and because there's a couple other, he does a full-on V trigger here too. So
that one never clicked with me when he did it, because I'm like, it's such a it is a wrestling move.
It's a regular fight move.
But it's such a normal thing to do. It doesn't feel like it has to be set up in the way that a wrestling move does. Whereas the one-winged angel is very specifically, no, you get them on your shoulders, you flip them forward, you sit down. Like, there's a whole stepped process to it. Whereas a V-trigger is just a knee to the face. Like Batman can do that every other issue. That wouldn't stick out as being weird.
True, but it was the pose in which it was. It was, again, a very Omega-esque, lean forward, theatrical type vibe. So that's was being shared around. And not really cool.
And let's not gloss over the fact that he's doing all this to white supremacists, which just made it for he's burning down their headquarters. He's going after them. This whole story. There's a little bit of a flashback to him and his father. And his father talking about, why he does what he does and why he wants to help be a teacher and hopefully encourage people to make the right choices when they grow up. And we see here that there's this little community that's been shifted, and they're all kind of living homeless, but this group of white supremacists want to get rid of them all, so they're going to attack them. And there's a whole basically running thing with this priest who helps Batman, first of all, because Batman as Bruce gets attacked when he tries to intervene with an attack in an alleyway, and this priest sort of steps in and says, no, don't hurt him, and shields him with his body. And then there's kind of the dramatic irony of this is that later on, when Batman is absolutely destroying these assholes, he comes in to kind of patch up the supremacists because that's his way. But we still get to enjoy Batman beating the absolute ever-living piss out of all these bad guys. And also, his giant construction truck is back. Feels weird to call it a Batmobile, but it's kind of the equivalent here.
For sure. The big huge utility loader type thing, and also Batman's there. He goes to this community, it seems to be on the outskirts of Gotham, to buy arms, right? Because absolute Batman doesn't play around. He's not buying lethal rounds. The guy even says that they're less lethal, but that's why Bruce is there. And of course, as stuff starts going sideways, Bruce goes to intervene, and the guy that sold him the weapon's like, just forget about it. It doesn't involve you. Turns out, of course, he's in on it as well. So just a very gritty, weirdly down to earth kind of Batman story for all the stuff in Absolute Batman that we've seen with mind control helmets and the Bane stuff. Batman versus just a bunch of racists, very, very, and especially right now, a very fun, good read.
Yeah, and you've got this thing where the priest is recognizing some of these racists that are wearing masks and, hey, I knew you as a kid, you were much better than this, that kind of thing. It's showing you. And they even do a bit here where two cops come up and say, I can't let you bad guys do this. And then they just burst out laughing and put on masks with the bad guys. So two of these cops are also supremacists, and they're going to join in. And this guy's making this speech, and he's about to say white power, and that's when Batman comes in and just breaks his arm like it's, a twig. It just comes in, snaps a 2-page spread. Ultra, Daniel Warren Johnson, when he does action, he sometimes does these really kind of exaggerated, I don't know, physical body kind of stretching kind of thing. So you just see this bone sticking out of his elbow.
It's very serious Looney Tunes, right? Because the arm doesn't bend that far, but the way that he draws it, to create that emphasis of the bone break right? The arm gets stretched and the bones protruding, and yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So, and then from there's a lot of action scenes of Batman beating the shit out of these guys, stalking them. You get the red backgrounds with the thunder and lightning behind them. It really gives it a lot of atmosphere. But again, the priest comes in and stops them from going too far. But then Batman hunts down their headquarters, and that's when he goes to get his big truck and comes storming in and pulls out a flamethrower in the preceding section. But that's not to gloss over the 2-page spread where the truck comes in, and like there's a lot of detail in this page. Like, you see Batman in the driver's seat, even though it's a relatively pretty small part of the page because this truck is so mammoth in size. But yeah, whips out the flamethrower and it's a whole thing. The priest comes in to start patching up all these guys who have got burn wounds and stuff because they've just escaped this burning building. And the ending intercuts with young Bruce talking to his dad, and one of the links between the two stories is that this priest had a photograph of like protesting and trying to make the world a better place, and Bruce's dad had the same photo. Bruce is in the photo with him without the mustache, and the ending flashback reveals that was him. And the end of the story, as Bruce is saying, or Thomas is saying to Bruce, "Oh, I know you'll be good for the world too. You'll do the right things." And the last page is a full page spread of Batman, like basically crying in front of the giant truck. Like the truck's like, again, dominating the page. This full page spread, it feels huge, and he is just on the ground with his head and his knees sobbing because he's not really living up to what his dad wanted from him. It's got some punch to it. It feels like it fits the tone of Absolute Batman, but it feels like it's also just very cathartic to see him go hunting the bad guys. I don't know. There was a lot of good in here. I have to say.
The final few pages with what it does with the coloring too. This is the Mike Spicer, who colors a lot of Johnson's work. The stuff in the past has like this reddish magenta to it, and it goes that same color is used for the blood on Bruce's hands. So it's just thematically, the thought of his dad being disappointed, right? This is not who he is, but his dad will always be proud of him because he's got this strong, compassionate heart and does want to help others, right? I just thought that was a nice, tie through to the stories.
Yeah, it's this idea that, this priest is doing this and he's more like his dad was as opposed to what he's become, and him sort of wrestling with that is kind of an interesting, just an interesting, like, poignant moment to end it on. It's interesting to see someone else have a voice in this version of Batman, because obviously up until now it's just been Scott Snyder, it's just been his thing. But obviously this shows that there can be more, as does the backup that we're about to get to. So, no, I like this main story a lot. I thought it was a really entertaining read. And I thought the backup by James Harren, who is, again, both writer and artist. So they did like a double whammy here of like writers doing their own art. I liked half of this backup. I thought the first half with the build-up, with these villains like coming into like one of their dad's houses to hide, and they're saying, "Oh, something worse than the cops is coming for us," and they're basically just a group of villains that are scared that Batman's coming. And I thought the suspense and build-up in that half was very good. I thought once the action started, once Batman actually started to like fight them, I thought it kind of got a little bit more just generic, and I wasn't really feeling the excitement. Like there's the first moment where Batman's kind of hanging upside down and he grabs like the guy who comes through the door when they're waiting for him. I think that's a good moment, but I think once he's actually fighting and the chaos breaks out, I don't know if the action flows in a way that I was enjoying the fight sequence in the same way that I was in the previous story with Batman fighting all the supremacists. Right,
and these are Black Mask party animals too.
So yeah, they got the masks on. Yeah,
they have the masks on, and this is a rich kid going, because he knows that his dad has, this what does he have? He has weapons that they can use, because dad kept them on him and stuff. So they go there, and then the dad wakes up, and at the same time they're dealing with that, Batman's on their trail. So yeah, that suspense of the first part, super, super good. And that moment you're talking about where Batman pulls him up, you could see the scratches into the floor or the wall as he's being pulled up, and it's just a real nice touch.
Yeah, they treat it like Batman's like a horror movie villain almost. Like they're talking about him coming, we've got this conflict with the dad saying, "Get out of my house," and then you cut to this page that's just silent with Batman like on the roof of the building, and there's lightning going around, and it's like the way the cape is drawn here, almost looks like a big claw with all the different strands of each corner of the cape, like stretching out really far. So yeah, there's definitely a real vibe that it's going for, and I really appreciate what it's doing. It's just that once the actual fight starts, right late in the issue, once the big guy starts like firing the two Uzis, like from that point on, I was kind of just a little bit going through the motions, just kind of taking it in. And then the ultimate ending, which is after everything goes down, some of the grenades go off that the dad had. The dad and the son embrace, and he's like, "Oh, you're all right, kid. You're all right," and that's the end of the story. I don't know if I necessarily felt like I cared about that much. Like I don't know if the tension between them made me like care about the reconciliation at the end. Or the dad still caring about his son. I don't know. I didn't really fit quite. Like for me, it was like a horror story about Batman coming, with some tension, and then the ending kind of tried to go a bit of a different direction.
Yeah. No, I agree in that, but I will say that again with the coloring here, the yellow for the boom of the grenades going off against the purples in the blues, right? It's really striking. And then the reds of the blood, because it looks like the dad caught the worst of that explosion. The coloring is really doing a lot of work. But yeah, the action that leads up to that is kind of a mess. Like there's a lot going on, and it almost doesn't know what to focus on. I wish it just kind of had hunkered on Batman against the big guy a little bit more. Yeah,
maybe too many like minions running around or something getting involved, so it was hard to maybe follow it as well. I do like the art overall though, because I agree with the coloring comment that you made, but I like how different in style this is, because Johnson is not a like panels with gutters type artist, right? Everything's like filling the page, and it's a lot of like exaggerated elements and things like that. Whereas this art is like, no, there's gutters, there's panels. Most of the panels are squares and rectangles. It's a very different style, and the art itself feels a little bit more old school as a result. And it's kind of interesting seeing Absolute Batman in this style, because I would say Johnson's closer to what it usually looks like. Obviously, it looks very different from Dragata, but it's definitely a bit more closer in a modern style to that. Whereas this feels like, no, you can put Absolute Batman into like a more like kind of old school style and it would still work. It's more just about kind of how they're writing the character and how they're presenting him as this kind of scary, kind of violent monster kind of thing. So I enjoyed seeing the different style being presented here. It's just at the end of the story kind of lost me a little bit, sadly. But as a backup, not too bad though. There's kind of like another little 2-page thing at the end, which I'll admit I didn't really pay that much attention to. It's just because it's not really a story.
It's a let's learn about bats, and it's using these fun facts about bats, and it shows how they relate to Absolute Batman. So it's stuff like the fear of bats is called chiruptophobia, and it's people sharing social media of Batman running around Gotham saying stuff like, "Oh, looks like I'm staying in tonight," right? It says how they can fly up to 250 miles in a single night, and it's Batman, on the motorcycle going through town and stuff. So there's just these little type of blurbs that are about bats and how they apply to Absolute Batman, and it was a bit cutesy in a good way. I mean that as a compliment. Like for a story where we saw people boiling oil to throw on Batman, right? And grenades going off, and then Batman fighting these white supremacists doing bad things to people. It was nice to have a little cute 2-pager, relating Absolute Batman to bats. The actual animal.
Yeah. But no, I mean, honestly, fun annual. This Absolute Universe still feels so fresh. It's kind of exciting to still get more stuff in it and more voices in it. So I can't say I was mad. Because sometimes annuals can feel a little bit like a chore, like, oh, we're doing this because we have a week 5 and we need to fill it with something. And sometimes, obviously, they can turn out to be great, but sometimes it just kind of feels like filler for filler's sake. I was not displeased, particularly with the main story, but even I think the backup, while it had its faults, I still think offered something fresh on this take of Batman, which is cool. So, that's nice. And there was a heart to the first story as well, which, was kind of dealing with this idea of like compassion even for the worst people in society. As much as we were saying, oh, we enjoy the violence against the villains, because of course we are. There is kind of a, there's something that separates us from them, and we should be acknowledging that as well.
Absolutely. However, I will say the
Mhm.
reason it feels cathartic is because of how ramped up things have got, right? Like we're just seeing in the real world the worst of the worst start to do this stuff. So to see this fantasy world where they can get their comeuppance,
Oh yeah.
and it did it made me, it didn't put a mirror on me. And when Bruce's dad, when Thomas is just like, no, that's, you know, you are who you are. You have this big, compassionate heart. It definitely didn't make me feel great for enjoying watching these people get destroyed, But again, they're also filled with hate. And at a certain point, again, they deserve a comeuppance of some kind.
Yeah.
So, which again, props to Daniel Warren Johnson for being able to ride that line, right? And do that. So really good. I would love to see what he does with other absolute characters at this too. Just to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we'll see if they end up doing other. I mean, I assume they'll do other annuals at some point, but I wonder what other absolute content we'll get outside of the main absolute books. There's definitely potential, especially if they're selling well. And the fact that this annual did better than everything else that came out this week, at least going by the Kindle rankings, is quite interesting because it's like, oh, even the annual can do high numbers. So I don't think that's typically true necessarily for most books. I don't think annuals tend to be, super well, unless they really hype it up as like, oh, this is part one of the next big story arc or something like that. A
piece of something, yeah. That said, this was very hyped up amongst the internet section that I'm wrapped up in, right? People in the know were hyping up Daniel Warren Johnson on Absolute Batman, with some of the art stuff, and even Johnson himself was like, I can't believe I get to do this. So that might have helped as well because there's this general buzz around it. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving the Absolute Batman annual?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
I think I am going to go. I'm going to go 8.5. I really liked that first story. I was quite pleased with this as an annual. So there you go. Batman and Robin, Year 1, Issue 12, Mark Waid writing with Chris Samnee on the art. So, yeah, Robin saved Batman, end of last issue, which sets us up for this final chapter where they're chasing down Two-Face and Clayface. The Faces, you might call them. Or just call them Three-Face. Actually, Clayface is kind of infinite face because he can make any face. So
yeah, he's every face.
Yes, Two-Face in every face. There you go. Those are the titles. There you go. So I mean, Batman does make some digs about how you snuck out of your foster parents' home, like I should be chastising you for that. But then of course they're climbing down the building, and he just kind of looks over at Robin and he's got like a smirk in his face. So the art really kind of sells this idea of like him. The bond growing. So yeah, Two-Face and Clayface have got this big plan to like poison the water supply and like, turn all of Gotham City into clay monsters or whatever. And Two-Face is still questioning to the last second, okay, I need to flip for this. And Clayface is like, I carried all this shit out here and now you're deciding to flip the car. You could have done that first. So got a chuckle out of that. So
I love that he goes, you don't understand, scarring people is a choice. And Two-Face just goes, or Clayface goes, do tell. And I just felt the not cynicism, the sarcasm just seeping in those two words.
Yeah, so obviously this boils down to like Batman and Robin having a fight with them. Batman actually blows Clayface up. I need to like collect them all before he reforms T-1000 style. I need to, bag all the separate parts of him. Whilst Robin's dealing with Two-Face, there's a whole thing because he's got like a hard disk that has like all the financial information and stuff that all of his clay like disguised people have collected.
Yeah, all of their information on everybody.
No, I was just trying to think of a word for like all of his duplicates that he had like infiltrate. I couldn't think of a good word for it. Doppelklingers. Doppelklingers, yes, whatever. Whatever. Yeah, there's a whole thing here, and there's a good bit where Two-Face pulls out a gun, and Robin just grabs it out of his hand and kicks him and yells, "No guns!" And I'm like, oh, Batman's been teaching him well.
Yes,
I give me a chuckle, in the best possible way. So there's a whole thing where Batman takes Robin back to the house, the family's house, and he's like, same time tomorrow, and Batman's like, no, like you're supposed to be living here, but we made a good team. And I'm not going to give up trying to win you back. And the thing is because all of the thing with Two-Face to like try and discredit Bruce Wayne is kind of now out in the open because he's been caught. It does kind of make Bruce look a lot better in the eyes of the system. So there's a whole thing here where the social services lady basically vouches for him and convinces the judge to give him guardianship of Dick.
And this judge does not like Bruce Wayne.
No,
it is clear.
He's like, no, I trust her opinion, and because of her opinion, I'm going to grant this in a 12-month probation period, and then we'll be re-examining. And Bruce tries to like, what about full adoption? And she drags him out there. She's like, no, quit while you're ahead. We'll come back to that in a year. Come back to that in a year.
I mean, thank you. She goes better. Yeah, real good.
Yeah. So the whole big ending here is that Gordon admits to the press that Batman and Robin are the ones that took down Clayface and Two-Face, and admits that, you know, some villains, these super criminals, are too much for the police to handle, and they need help. And that's when Batman and Robin will be called in. And he turns on the signal, and it shines onto a building, and we see Batman and Robin up there in the spotlight. And there's an interesting little bit here where Batman asks Dick, oh, is this what it feels like? Because this is closer to a circus performer than anything Batman does. And I like that because it's ending with this idea that Robin is influencing how Batman does things. It's not just Batman teaching Robin. Some of the showmanship that Dick has grown up with is rubbing off in the other direction as well. So it's quite nice.
Because Batman is now wearing the blue suit, right? It's got the blue cowl with the gray. It's not just all the dark as well. And then I feel like this is a famous cover. This is Samnee doing that version.
Yeah.
Whatever that Batman and Robin cover is with them in the spotlight. So I thought that's a fun moment. And the fact that Gordon points out that, civilian consultants have been a long-standing police custom, this is what they are. They're civilian consultants. They're helping us. So I do like that they throw that in there because it's still, this is a year one story, right, for Batman and Robin. So it's still early.
Yeah.
People can't trust Batman.
No, I like it. I like that this ends with this idea that Batman has learned something from Dick, just as equally as Dick has learned from Batman. And it's like, we have to have this a little bit more. And Dick even points out, like, are you worried that this will make the villains fear you less? And he's like, it means they'll underestimate us. And that's actually quite good too, because it means they won't expect us to become as hard, or that was a bad sense. Come at them with as much strength as we have, to put it in a different way.
It'll keep them off balance.
Yeah. So no, I like that because part of like the whole adding Robin to the act in the first place was like, hey, he's bright, he's a distraction, he's colorful, and Batman's going to pop out of the shadows and nab whoever's looking at Robin. So this idea of this year one story building up to a place where they're acknowledging that there's a performant aspect to this, and using Dick Grayson's Robin is like, hey, he's the symbol of that. He's the symbol of adding the performance to this. I quite like. So no, all good. They jump in the bat plane to end the issue. The press try and yell things over to Batman and Robin, but other than Robin just saying that he's single to the ladies, which, given that he points out that he's 10 years old in this, makes it feel especially stupid that he says that, but that's fine because he's 10 years old. He's allowed to be stupid.
Yes, he's a dumb 10-year-old. Yeah.
Yes.
And then him calling them the dynamic duo on the way out. I thought that was real fun too.
Yep. Ends with them flying off in the Batwing. So, no, I mean, it was great. It was actually a great year one story. It's been fantastic throughout. I do think it was smart for the last issue to focus mainly on how these two work together as a team and what impact they've had on each other, rather than like the villain story is basically already wrapped up. It basically boils just down to a chase and then fight, and that's fine because I think the high point of the villain story was probably when Two-Face killed Grimraldi. That was like the high point where it was like, oh, that's shocking that they've killed him off, and we've been doing stuff since then, but it kind of feels like, no, it made more sense to me for the last issue of this, which is supposed to be about like this pair coming together and like solidifying the fact that Batman and Robin are now a thing going forward. Yeah. To focus on them, kind of like, tying the knot, as it were. So yeah, good stuff.
They pick up those loose ends. So Samnee does something really cool during the fight scene with Clayface and Batman when he hits him with the explosive and he explodes. The gutters, like the lines between, become clay from the bottom after the explosion. I thought that was a lot of fun. Like it just shows, how it's gotten everywhere. And then there's just a small moment with Two-Face when Batman goes, "Oh, it's not a knife, it's dual compound explosive." Two-Face just looks over and goes, "Nice." Like there's just it just gave me such a chuckle where he's like, "Ah, two," and just the through 12 issues of this, there's been a theme of duality, right, between Matt Hagen and Grimaldi and Two-Face, Batman, Robin, all this, So to have that pop up here in the last issue with Two-Face going, two, it was real fun.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Samnee's art is phenomenal throughout. It has been the entire book. It's, like the comedy of like Bruce getting custody and that scene is delightful. The heartwarming moment of looking over at Robin when they're going down the building. The action's obviously very good. And then just how hopeful those last like 4 or 5 pages are with all the, Gordon smelling as he's turning on the signal and showing that they've got Batman and Robin as a pair to rely on. There's kind of a definite kind of hopefulness to it, like a kind of, because it's obviously Batman more often than not probably dips into, oh, this is a darker superhero and this is something where there's a need for Batman because things are so bad and it's not necessarily a happy time. This definitely tips it into, no, there's a sense of hope, and maybe that's the idea, is that once you bring in Robin, you're bringing in something a little bit lighter because Batman himself maybe needs something lighter inside his life because he would have went too dark otherwise. So, and that's something that various Batman and Robin stories address over the years, is this idea of like him being saved by the existence of a Robin. So, no, very, very good. Obviously, it's been great throughout. I mean, is it the best issue of the book? Probably not, but like, not because it's in any way not a fitting ending, because like it's one of those books where this is a very consistent 12-issue story that is going to read phenomenal in that deluxe hardcover when it gets one, because it will get that deluxe hardcover. There is no question.
Yeah. This issue very much as the denouement, right? Like after the big action, it wraps up everything. So, which is good, which I felt like we needed, and it doesn't feel rushed. Like the scenes at the courthouse, like when it ended the Two-Face Clayface stuff real quick, I was like, well, what do we got left? And then we get to the courthouse, and then we get to the introduction of Batman and Robin by Gordon, and it's a very fitting end piece,
Yeah.
And like you said, it's gonna read really well in that 12-issue deluxe.
No, this will be something that'll be so easy to hand to someone. They've read year 1, they've read Long Halloween, you say, here's Batman and Robin year 1. Like, that is what you'll slap in front of them for one of those first early stories next. And it'll be a good, easy to read thing for new people. I mean, the only possible thing that maybe you just have to warn them is like, hey, if you've heard of Clayface, this isn't that Clayface. This is a different Clayface. Right. That's like the only thing, but that's not such a bad thing, though.
Yeah. And maybe by the time the Clayface movie comes out, people will realize, right? And there'll be some more buzz around Clayface.
That's true.
Cool.
That's true. And that may be the perfect time to put out a nice version of this, because hey, this is a Clayface story. They can say. So it's a whole thing. All right, what are you giving Batman and Robin year 1 issue 12?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with that. It's so funny though, because like sometimes it's this idea of like rating the individual issue, right? But if you ask me to rate this series, which you can do when it's only a 6 or 12 issue thing, like this was probably like a 9.5. This book as a whole, like as a whole, it's a 9.5. That's how I'd recommend it.
I'm sure if you averaged all of our scores for each of these, I'm sure it'd be really high. Right? Like, we're up on the higher end because there wasn't one bad issue of this book.
Hey, when we get to
I would guess it goes from 8s to 10s.
When we get to the annual episode, Matt, you may get your answer to that.
Oh, there we go.
Numbers are being crunched. Numbers are being crunched indeed. All right, so that's Batman and Robin year 1. Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 10. Jeph Loeb writing with Matteo Scalera on the art. So also wrapping up a Batman limited series, and also an early Batman and Robin timeline story, because it was funny because you're reading the other one and then getting to this and Robin being like, oh, you give me a motorbike? oh, like, it's just kind of funny how these two lined up so well.
These coming out on the same week doesn't seem fair to the Long Halloween last Halloween.
It doesn't. It's definitely the weaker book. I mean, which is not to say that I didn't enjoy things in this. No. I thought the ending was kind of sweet. It was just quite fitting. I appreciate the idea that. Well, I appreciate some of the ideas in this, but obviously I don't necessarily love all of it. I do. Well, I kind of get what they're going for is that, different people have been using the moniker of Holiday. The idea that if you use that gun on a holiday, people will assume it's part of some serial killer and they won't be suspected of anything. I kind of like that conceptually. I do think the way it's been told is maybe been a little, like, once we started to really get confused about it, it felt like it never really was that satisfying to fit together again.
Just because, so if you've read Long Halloween and Dark Victory, that makes sense because the holiday killers in those are both different.
Yes.
Right? So it's not just one specific person. So it's this idea of holiday. And again, that goes in with what Loeb was doing with the Long Halloween, with the idea of Batman and then Two-Face, and I believe in Harvey Dent and all that stuff. So in the grand scheme, in the big picture, yes, I like that. Does it end a fulfilling story? Not really, because I feel like in this, there's so many cogs and gears at play. It gets a little muddled. And I just wish that maybe he had just maybe not so many plot points going on at the same time to really make that land, because the last page where Batman says, "I choose to believe in Harvey Dent," I thought that landed really well.
But I mean, that entire last scene, like, because they do that same panel of Batman, Gordon, and Robin, which was Batman, Gordon, and Dent in Long Halloween, looking up at them as they're having their discussion on the roof. They do some of the exact same panels to call back to that first book, and I really like that. I really like Batman bringing back that I believed in Harvey Dent, and then he says, I believe in, we'll get through this and we'll do all right because I believe in Jim Gordon, I believe in Robin, and I believe in Batman. And then the final page, he says, I believe in Gotham. And that's kind of how you wrap it up. I like that entire last sequence. I even like the action setup of, like, this has all been to construct a war between the Falcons and the Arkham, like,
the freaks versus the gangsters.
Like, I like that setup. It's just the setup to get here was a little bit convoluted. And I think the weakest part of the issue for me is probably the sort of the face-off with Two-Face and, like, Gilda, where I'm like, okay, I get that these two care about each other, but you've muddied the waters so much at this point with everything with Gilda and Harvey throughout this particular series that by the time he's like Two-Face gives himself up to be like, no, I'll take the fall for everything that just happened. Like, I forced her to do that. It was self-defense. Take me away and just get Gilda help. By the time he was saying that, I'm like, I don't really care about you caring about Gilda anymore, because this book's kind of ruined that part of it, honestly.
Yeah, well, I also feel like it was Loeb trying to pay off the whole Gilda was Holiday, because that was always a fan theory going around. That she did some of the murders. It wasn't just Alberto in the first one. And I feel like this is him trying to pay that off, where I don't think anybody really cared about that at that point. I was much more here seeing Harvey's downfall, where thinking like there's a baby, right? And what does that mean for Harvey Dent, Two-Face, with Gilda and this type of stuff. And again, it just gets really muddled here with Mario and Falcones or the Falcones and the Selena, adding that all into it as well. I'm trying to tie back in the Catwoman story that he did. Was that When in Rome? So yeah, like you said, there are pieces in here that I really like. There are other parts where I'm just like, oh my god, this was a slog.
Yeah, some of it's just messy. Like, I think all the Harvey and Gilda stuff's just really messy, and they do this whole thing where Gilda's like playing both sides. She's kind of influencing Harvey in some ways and manipulating him. She's influencing Mario to influence him. And I do think the ending of Long Halloween did definitely imply that Gilda did at least one murder. Like, I always read the ending of that book as like she did at least one murder, but this weird convoluted thing of like, some of the things this in this story were the crime family. Some of them were villains that were connected to Two-Face. In Catwoman's case, she just shot herself because she got to herself before Holiday did. And it's almost like it was so determined to make a mystery that felt like it was too hard to answer that it kind of just made all the way it did kind of fit together unsatisfying. Like you get that sometimes where you write a story like a movie or TV show or comic book, whatever, will be like, oh, I don't want them to be able to predict something. But the thing is, though, is the reason why a reveal will be satisfying is because all the pieces were there, and it, in theory, could have been predicted because you're not cheating the audience. And sometimes if you do something that feels too out of left field, it feels like, well, that's not satisfying because you intentionally wrote something that could not be solved. And that's not that's not fun. It's not, it just feels like a betrayal once you get to the reveal, because it didn't. I never could have thought about that because you never gave me the pieces to think about that. Now, obviously, yes, it's great if you didn't think of it, and then once you find out, you're like, oh shit, it was there all along, and I just never figured it out. But for that to be the case, it has to be possible to figure it out, and some people will figure it out, and that's okay.
I feel like if you go back and read this, you're still not going to be clued into the ending, right? Like I feel like there were the pieces there that Loeb wanted to get to, and he didn't care how we got there. So it's not like there were these breadcrumbs where you go back on a second viewing or a second read and be like, oh my God, I didn't notice that time, like you do here. But yeah, it's in wrestling, it's like you're doing something for the pop, not for the story, right? You want the reaction, and that's not always good. Like sometimes it works out great. Like sometimes just the shock of something happening, cool. Here, not so much. On a positive side, though, the Matteo Scalera art, really good.
Oh, pretty good.
Very evocative of Tim Sale in the good ways. Right now, I'm looking at the page of Gilda in handcuffed with I think she's in Arkham, right? And then Two-Face locked up in the jail, and just it's split perfectly down the middle, and it's a very well composed piece of art that feels very much in line with the Tim Sale stuff from the early stories. So props to them, because again, the art here, despite as muddled as the storytelling got, I was never lost on the page. I always knew what was going on here and there. The words weren't matching with what I was seeing here, right? They weren't landing. So but yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The art is pretty solid here, and we kind of glossed over a lot of the action. Like, I don't think there's much to say on it. It's solid enough for what it is, because like I said, the siege on Arkham and Batman and Robin being this third party that comes in and tries to de-escalate it with their weird cannons that fire like gas grenades to try and take things, to calm them down or whatever, or obscure things. All that's fun. Robin on his motorbike, also fun. He's got a couple of one-liners. That stuff is perfectly solid. It's just typical action, really, with good art. Yeah. And I do really like that last scene. I think that last scene's a nice little sort of capper on the whole long Halloween saga. And, I like that it's credited at the end as Loeb, Sale, and pals on the little, note at the bottom. It's like, hey, Sale's a part of this journey. He's an important part of it, and we're going to call back to it. So, yeah. It's like the ending's very sweet and it's very well intentioned. It's just that the writing was a bit muddy in places along the way.
Now that you mentioned the Loeb, Sale, and pals thing on there, and the caption on the top is "I miss Harvey Dent," I can almost read that as Loeb saying that he misses Sale, right? Too, like, I miss my friend. He's not here anymore, but the idea of him will live forever.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
I do like that.
It doesn't feel forced though, because this whole idea of like Batman and Gordon being friends with Harvey in that first story, and then kind of mourning the fact that he's turned into Two-Face and missing this ally that they had still has always been a part of it. So it still feels like it fits with just in story what's happened. So yeah. So yeah, a little bit mixed, with some really nice moments or scenes, but certainly a little bit messy overall, which is going to obviously affect whatever ratings we're about to give it. But what are you giving Last Halloween issue 10? I'm maybe
that's a 7.5, and it really next time I should read this before I read a Waid Samnee book. I should know better, but I couldn't wait to read Batman and Robin Year One, so I read that first this week, and that might have affected the score just a teensy bit. But yes, 7.5.
I get it. All right, I'll give it a 7. I don't know if I said that yet, but I'll give it a 7. Enough in there that I still kind of liked reading it, even with its messiness, but obviously it is a pretty big, a reasonably sized drop from the Waid Samnee book. So there you go. Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, issue 3, with W. Maxwell Prince writing, Martin Morazzo on the art. So this came out a couple of weeks ago, and it was a busy week. Matt didn't get to it, so I said, you know what, we'll just leave it till week 5. No, I did read it that week, So like I remember this being, Billy slash, Shazam hanging out with Superman, or Superboy, I should say. But it's been a few weeks for me, so I'm going to let Matt drive this one a little bit.
I got you. Sweet. All right, so we got that the last Kryptonite had essentially de-aged Superman, right? And so now he's hanging out in Fawcett with Billy, and they're playing this weird board game, and everything that Billy does, it's because Captain Marvel and Clark's just like, I haven't seen Kryptonite Man in a decade, and Billy's like, wait, how old were you, 4? Right? Because Billy's not putting this all together, right, with Superman and him. And yeah, so they get talking, and Billy tells Clark that, why don't you like draw your feelings? Because Clark's having a hard time dealing with this. Because that's what my therapist had told me to do.
Yeah, so we get a page from him. We also get a page from Billy where they kind of recap their origins with like crayon drawings.
Yes, with like sketches from that, which was a really a fun way of doing that, right? And at the same time they're talking, we have Sivana and Toyman teaming up with Lex to create this trap of an amusement park. Amusement park.
Yeah, I was going to say it. This is probably my least favorite of these 3 issues because this plan is so absurd that it took me out of it a little bit.
It's definitely one where I can see the blueprint of what the creators wanted to do, right? Because they're talking about, this is all about looking back at your youth with those rose-colored glasses and how that can always be a trap, right? You got to enjoy the now as much as you did, think about how much you enjoyed that. So the fact that they call it Nostalgia Springs, right? And it's this theme park or amusement park that's meant to trap Shazam and Superboy, through these different rides, and we go through it. But there's a really weird looking Toyman here where he looks like one of the theme park characters that you would meet. He has one of like the big plastic heads.
Yeah, but the cut out eyes, so it's kind of creepy. He's got like a horror movie look to him.
Very unsettling, I will say, 100%. So that's after we get the Clark drawing out, his origin and stuff, and then Billy getting his. Billy gets this in the mail for the opening, and he Shazams. They go and check it out, and it's empty, which doesn't ring well for Clark. And Toyman makes the appearance, and we get these Bizarro robots that come through, and we get a real good joke here where it's using the code. It says repeat what person says, but invert vocal output, and it says end. It's like the end of the code. And Savannah's like, well, no, they're not supposed to be talking like that. Flip the switch. So they flip it. Now they start doing Bizarro speech, which I thought was very funny because it shows that they still didn't iron everything out, right? Savannah and Toyman don't necessarily work well together. And Billy and Clark end up on the canonical coaster of doom, which again, I feel is just the creatives trying to be a bit meta here. Focusing on that one, they end up going through like a version of the Rock of Eternity, where there's a animatronic of the wizard. Looks like he's singing "It's a Small World" after all, which I thought was funny. And the 7 deadly sins of man get up and start attacking, and we get a fun action sequence drawn out by Billy on how to defeat them, which I thought was really fun, right? So he says like, pride tried dealing a blow to my ego, but I showed him prejudice instead, right? And it's him hitting like a hook in on him. And then they notice that there's another track in this ride, and now it's shaped like a rocket, and we get to go through the end of Krypton. And everything explodes, which leads to a face-off between Savannah and
Toyman put a lot of effort into this ride. I'm just going to say that right now. This is a lot of work.
It's kind of Toyman's thing. So while our heroes are doing this, it cuts to Lois and confronting Luthor, which I thought was a real fun scene. And he has this toy that's the Vitruvian Man, right? That's the Da Vinci sketch. But it also whispers things. It's something that Toyman had created to drive kids insane, which I thought was again like super super evil. Right?
That's a funny
he's
bit.
developing toys. Yeah. In also we go to the Batcave where Batman has synthesized a way to return Superman back to his regular age, where he's what looks like crossing inert kryptonite in with the radiation of the whatever kryptonite color turned him into a kid.
Isn't there also something here about how these new kryptonites are like a distress call from like possibly the fifth dimension or something? Yeah,
that's sort of the last one, the rainbow one, isn't actually a piece of krypton or matter. It's a distress signal from the fifth dimension. And as Bruce says, that's this absolute strangest of places, you know, where ideas take form of magical imps and mischief-inclined mites. So a bit of a where this is kind of going. I feel like we're gonna get some imp action here towards the last two issues.
It's not actually that weird. The fifth dimension is exactly like our dimension. The only difference is the 3 seashells in the bathroom.
This guy does know how to use the shells.
I got triple. Yeah.
So Batman hits the he takes out Toyman and Savannah and hits Clark with the antidote, and he returns back to his real form. But he notices Superman notices a distress call in the underlying cellular morphology of the design of the kryptonite, right? Of the rainbow portion, and it says "Help Mixie." So Superman ends up counting to 5 and saying his name backwards, and he transports what looks like into the Daily Planet office with this rainbow balloon hanging over him.
Yeah,
and that's where the issue ends.
Which obviously, like, is this the regular Daily Planet? Is he in the Daily Planet on the fifth dimension? Is this some weird, just sort of mock version of it? That would be my first question with this ending.
Well, and there's a little creepy guy hiding under a desk with a he. So
that's right.
I'm wondering what that's about. So
an evil imp.
You know, definitely feels like a trap, because everything that we've seen with the imps for the most part is they're mostly just mischievous. Like, the thing I love about Mxyzptlk is he just wants to mess with Superman. Like, it's this thing where he doesn't really want to cause any harm. If he wanted to, he could, right? That was kind of the crux of Morrison's action. Where, like, what if there was a bad imp? So I think it's fun that we're returning back to that here. You know, whatever has infected the fifth.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is still a solid issue, don't get me wrong. Obviously, the art's very consistent with what it's been. It's a very pleasant read. I just think it's my least favorite of the three because I thought the exploration of the different kryptonites in the first issue and that whole time warping his brain stuff was really cool and interesting. I think the whole giant size kaiju, but also like getting hit with the red kryptonite stuff was really, really cool and fun and felt epic. This by its nature just was like, oh, he's just hanging out with Billy Batson for like a day and they get into some hijinks. Just was inherently, I think, less exciting to me. Especially since, you know, while he's technically the size of like teenage Clark Kent, he's still mentally still him. Right? So I don't know. I don't know if this led to as much of a fun exploration of something new as the other two kryptonites did for me, but not bad, certainly. Not bad at all.
No, not at all. And you know, I do love the fifth dimension in Mxyzptlk, so I love to see where this goes and why this distress signal ended up in this big lump of different colored kryptonite, right? Like, is this a fifth dimensional thing? Is this this is where they came from originally or whatever? So yeah, very, very curious to see where it goes. But yeah, this one, you know, the whole nostalgia springs, and I like it, but I can see the blueprint a little bit too clearly. So, but yeah, fun read.
Sure, yeah. All right, what are you giving Superman the Kryptonite Spectrum?
I'm gonna give this a. The art was really solid, I think, too. Storytelling a bit off. I'll give it a 7.5.
I think I'll agree with that. 7.5. I think it was good. Like, I don't want to be too negative because it's not bad. It's just I just didn't like it as much as issue 1 and 2 from a story perspective. But there's still fun touches in there. There's still nice moments, and the art is very consistent. So it's hard to complain. So very cool. All right, so we're on to the Patreon kind of marathon here at the back chunk of our week 5 episode. So every month to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make me read a book at one of the higher tiers of your choosing. And I'm about to do 3 of these babies in a row. So first up, we have Batman and the Outsiders, issue 28. And this is the start of a new arc. We had the annual with the wedding last time, I believe, there's an editor's note in this issue referencing that at one point. But this is a new story about Looker. The Truth About Looker Part 1 is what this is called. And this is the bank manager, bank employee lady that kind of threw a fit at Katana a couple issues ago that we kind of... It's like, okay, she's clearly going to be something, but I don't know who she is yet, because they made such a point of introducing her. So, first up, Halo's getting a haircut. I know this sounds like a big deal.
Okay. Perfect.
But they make a big deal out of it, how she wants to have her own hair, because even though she's in Gabby's body, or whatever her name was before, she wants to have, be herself, have her own style, have her own thing. So she gets her haircut, and it's a whole thing. There's a couple of big splash pages kind of teasing where we're going here. And what this woman, I assume she's Looker, or maybe the bad guy that's coming for her is Looker, but either way, what she's going to end up looking like when she's super villained up or super heroed up, depending. So, we get the haircut, right? Her friend from school does the haircut, and then we cut to some of the adults sitting around, and they're actually talking about Halo. They're talking about Katana's talking to Geoforce and Black Lightning about how, oh, I caught Gabby looking up at the stars the other night, and she's clearly sad and thinking about her past, and it's made me realize she's always going to be different. She's always going to be this ancient being, and so on. And they're all just kind of like talking about it. And when she comes home, Gabby's completely changed her hair. It's much shorter. She's got kind of, I don't even know what to call it. Like, it's kind of like short, like 1980s business lady with like kind of the fluffy top, but it's kind of slicked back.
Gotcha.
I guess.
The like the neighbor in the later seasons of Married with Children.
Yeah, a little bit like
the
that.
Marcy.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but a bit more overemphasized because it's a comic book.
Right.
So, yeah, and she's like, yeah, the hair's good and blah blah, and there's a couple of jokes here about how she asked people at school, and Katana's like, oh, I bet the girls said cut it and the boys said don't, and then Halo says, I only asked the boys, and then smiles, and so there's jokes. But the bank lady shows up, right? Mrs. Briggs, her name is, and she's like, hey, I want to talk to she doesn't call her Katana, obviously, but she wants to apologize for how she acted at the bank, and Katana's like, yeah, but that's fine and all, but you could have just phoned that. Like, clearly there's something else going on here. What's up? But then she kind of like gets a little bit nervous and tries to leave, but she's like, no, stick around, I'll make you some tea, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, this mysterious figure with the hat and like the gold face is outside being like, ah yes, Mrs. Briggs, she's in there, we're going to get her. And he pulls out these two kind of balls, and we see like little faces in the balls. And then we see two sort of like just bad guys, like look like part of a gang. They're actually part of a gang that was in an earlier issue, but I found out later on. Because we referenced this like gang leader later, but he clearly has them under control. They're being manipulated, brainwashed, right, with these ball things that he's holding in his hand, and he's like, "You're going to get that woman from me, right?" Meanwhile, Metamorpho and Sapphire are on their honeymoon. They're at a cabin at a fancy hotel in like a ski resort type place. But just as they're about to get to the loving, there's a scream from outside. And a couple of guys in green hoods are attacking the prince of some country that's also at the ski lodge. So Metamorpho steps in, protects the guy, but these two guys pull out these same balls, and they basically like suck Rex's like essence into the ball. So we see like Metamorpho's face inside the ball saying no. Mm-hmm. And then they hold the ball in their hand and they're like, yo, this meat puppet's now ours to command. So this is obviously connecting to the other character, but it's showing you how these balls work, is basically they suck in your soul and then they can control your body. So that seems to be the way this works. So Rex has been compromised, as it were. So Sapphire's very upset when she finds out that he's missing. Yeah. So anyway, Whilst Katana's talking to this Mrs. Briggs, the two thugs jump out. They knock Katana out by surprising her, and then they grab Mrs. Briggs and run away with her. And when the police show up, they're like, "Hey, Miss, could you like give a description of your attacker?" And she's like, "I simply fell and hit my head." And the policeman's like, "Miss, we'll never catch men like this if people don't report and are willing to prosecute." And Katana just walks away and goes, "Oh, don't worry, they'll be prosecuted." This is a job for Katana. Like, cut to her in costume, Katana, as in her sword, Katana, at the ready. And they go to the husband, the entire team of outsiders, and say they're looking for his wife. And he's obviously very concerned, and they're like, "We're going to go find her." So they fly off to go deal with that, and it leads them to this boat because the description of the bad guys leads them to this gang leader who was way back in issue 13 of the book, and Katana remembers these guys. So so they go into this boat where this gang leader is. We get a couple of fun fight sequences when they run into the two thugs that were there earlier. There's like a 2-page fight sequence which is completely silent, where Katana just beats the shit out of this guy, like knocks out his nunchucks, like does some fancy kicks and flips, and it's all very silent. It flows very well. The art here is very, very good. Really stuck out because it is like rare to get silent pages in a comic from this era, so it really felt like a special little moment, and really sold how angry she was that she wanted to fight this guy. But when they get to the gang leader and they're asking about what's going on here, why did you kidnap this woman, the gang leader's like, "I didn't kidnap a woman. Like, I don't order that kind of thing. Why are you coming after me?" And they don't really think, the guys are also denying it as well. And luckily enough, Batman's got like a radiation detector that picks up like some radiation on the two thugs. And it turns out he's like, "Wait a minute. This is some there's like electromagnetic interference here. I don't think these guys are responsible for what happened." So Batman's already on the trail that they were being controlled by someone else. So he's kind of figured some of this stuff out. And we're actually already at the end of the issue by this point, because at this point we have to go find her. We have to be worried, and they also mention that the energy that's from this stuff is not that, because the reason why he had this radiation detector is because it was something they developed after they visited where Halo was from, because it was sort of energy that's similar to that. So yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, we get this like mysterious figure who's been in the hat and the gold mask the entire time with Mrs. Briggs, and he's like, "I'm taking you to meet your destiny, and soon you will reign as queen of the world." And he takes off his mask, and he's like a bald guy. That told me who he was by any means, but there is an indication here that they come from below rather than from like an alien planet or something like that. And it says, "Next time we'll meet the people of the abyss." So I don't know who this villain is. I don't know what this group is that are coming for Mrs. Briggs. I'm very curious about that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even Batman says when he's talking to the team that, we have to go help her, and punish who needs punished, but that might take us to the very depths of hell. So I don't know if we're actually getting like into like, literal hell, or if we're, because it says people of the abyss, which makes me think of some underground or underwater society or something like that. Certainly it implies at the end there's a sort of a fancy headdress that Mrs. Briggs will wear once she's become whatever they want her to be, which, whether that means she's like a descendant of these people, or she was like, maybe like Aquaman was taken away at birth and she's separate from them, but she's going to retake her throne or something. I really don't know. I will say the mystery's intriguing. I like the art. Obviously I mentioned the fight scenes looking good. I also particularly liked some of the comedy with the characters interacting and talking about the haircut and all that. But even like the creepy bad guy, when he's whipping out these little like sort of like they're basically like big marbles that he whips out that he uses to control the people. Like when they draw him, there's like this idea of just this like gold face with like the glowing eyes, and later on the guys in the green hoods, they just have like the darkness inside the hood with just the glowing eyes, like these bright lights where the eyes would be. I think they have a creepy look, which is cool. Obviously it's tied in to Rex, and he's not with the rest of the team later because he's been kidnapped, but also it makes sense that they wouldn't question it because he's off on his honeymoon. Like, yeah, he's got time off, so they're not worried about him yet. Although I imagine Sapphire is probably going to maybe get on the phone or
Not
something.
Be thrilled.
Yeah.
So you said From the Abyss. I wonder if it's like in in Marvel, there's Mole Man.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this is DC's version of that. If they're like people like that, and it'll tie Geoforce into this because he can move the Earth and whatever.
Oh, maybe.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, and that's also when you talk about like the eyes, the hoods, and it's so they can see underground. If I remember right, and again, I'm not trying to spoil anything if this is what it is. There was a second Terra that got brought up that was from the underground realm. If this was like mid 2000s. And I wonder if that ties back to that at all.
Yeah.
So very, very curious.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff Batman detects with his detector, he literally says, oh, this is something that's used to control the brain. So he's like pretty adamant that these people were controlled. And the gang leader's like, hey, I'll be accepting your apology. And Batman just says, if you didn't deserve this now, you probably will soon. So, bye.
Nice.
So yeah, no, it was a fun issue. I like the build. I was surprised when it ended when it did because I was like, oh shit, I was expecting, I guess, a little bit more like story advancement. But I kind of like the red herring of going to the gang because it made sense. We had to figure out that these people can control others, and it may be a big deal because I assume they're going to have to fight Metamorpho soon. Because the bad guys have got control of them. I assume that's going to be a thing we get, maybe next issue. And certainly it feels like the Abyss word does make me think underwater. So I'm wondering if these are going to be some Atlantean-esque civilization that are coming for this Mrs. Briggs. So very curious, but no, a fun issue, but solid 8 out of 10. I'm liking the build to this. It feels like the start of a new arc, and while it was kind of a weird introduction at the time when they introduced this bank lady, this Mrs. Briggs, I do like that they teased her. I like that we got a couple of scenes with her in previous issues before we got to the arc that is about her, because it just kind of made it feel like, oh, we're teasing you something for like, next time. Without taking up too much time. The only confusion was me going like, am I supposed to know who this is? Like, who is this person? And maybe because you can spoil yourself accidentally by googling someone, because if it does turn out to be someone important, that will be the first thing that pops up when you search for them. I didn't do that with her, luckily. So, or if I did, I forgot what I saw. So I mean, I have no idea where it's going, which is nice. So. That is Batman and the Outsiders, issue 28. Planetary, issue 13, up next. And this is a very interesting issue. It's set in the past. It's split into two. And the first half is set in 1919 Germany. Now, the second half's 1920. So it's just a year later, right? So they follow on from each other. But the first half, which has got a little bit of narration, but is almost entirely silent otherwise, is Snow going into this castle up in this sort of cliff kind of structure. It's very moody. There's rain, there's lightning, and he's going in and he's searching around, and a couple of pages in you get a reveal, and your brain clocks what it is if you get the reference, right? Because he looks up, it's some kind of science lab, and there's like a table for a body that clearly is meant to rise up. Right? So it's Frankenstein's lab. That's what this is. This is Frankenstein's castle.
He's at Castle Frankenstein.
Yeah.
In the Bavarian Alps.
Exactly, yeah. And if I'd remembered, that's where... I mean, it just says Germany. It doesn't actually give you specifically the Alps, so no. I wouldn't have clocked that. But, he's sneaking around, and we also see those like egg sacs along the wall, so clearly there's like other experiments that aren't just like what we think of as traditional Frankenstein monster. And these egg sacs all kind of break, and like these like monster guys with tails like sort of like bust out of them. So we get this whole action scene where Snow climbs up one of the chains and then freezes the entire room. So we get like a couple of these monsters just sticking out of a bed of ice, and a couple are still climbing up, and he freezes them. This is all just silent. It's all just action. It looks great. It was like a horror movie action scene with all these monsters chasing him, and he's freezing them. He breaks off one of their frozen arms and hits another one with it. So it's a little bit of like a dark sense of humor to it as well, which is kind of cool. But it's a lot of atmosphere, and he's here to find something. So he goes up to the library and finds this secret hidden electrical map, which it's 1919, so an electrical map's kind of a big deal. but this globe, this secret map of the world appears, and it's like, what's he looking for? And it focuses in on what seems to be Big Ben. Skip ahead to a year later, 1920, in London, and he's come to find someone. He gets to a door. He's like, I'm not going to be stopped by a door. He freezes the handle and kicks it open, and he comes in. He's here to meet Sherlock Holmes. That's who he was trying to find. And he's like, hey, I've been looking for you, all that kind of thing. And the basic gist of this conversation is that we learn that there's been like a team that's existed between Sherlock Holmes, the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, and eventually in this scene Dracula shows up. And they've been kind of working together as part of the secret group to try and make the world better or whatever. Holmes also at one point says that one of their members, a Mr. Wells, is also like coming up with names for things, so they imply H.G. Wells is part of this team.
Yeah.
So we're going all in this kind of like classic monsters and like writers and fictional characters stuff. And when Dracula pops up in the background, Snow is like, I believed in all this other stuff. I believed in the Invisible Man. I believed in like, creatures that came back to life, but I've never really believed in you. And Dracula's all, you never do until it's too late. Yada yada. So Dracula pounces at him, and Snow just freezes him. Like, so he's completely frozen, Mr. Freeze style, and he kicks him in the balls, shattering his crotch onto the ground. And Sherlock Holmes is like, that won't actually kill him, right? And he's like, yeah, but he'll be frozen for a while, so I can cut him up, and it'll take a while for his dick to grow back. So, like, it's a whole thing. So again, there's a dark sense of humor to it, but we're playing with this idea of all these fictional characters. Because the first thing he said that referenced this, he's like, hey, I dealt with that invisible guy you sent after me in whatever country, and I didn't clock that he was talking about the Invisible Man. I just thought he meant some powered character in the world. But then he started referencing, Frankenstein again, and it's like, oh, you're referencing like Dracula. I'm like, oh, he meant the Invisible Man. He just straight up meant that character.
So I think these are all book characters too, right? Because it's 1920. So the Universal movies aren't out
That's
yet.
true. Yeah, at this point, they're still book characters, yeah.
And when did the original Nosferatu come out? That was in the 1920s, but not that early, right?
It was 1922, I want to say.
Okay, so closer.
Just after this, but yeah.
Yeah, so The Invisible Man was an H.G. Wells book. Frankenstein, of course.
Mary Shelley. Yeah.
Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in the 1800s. So, that all that stuff checks out. So it's like, that's what pop culture at the time was, right? So, of course, these are the characters that would be going around like in that way of Planetary. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, really, really fun. Like them bringing all this in, and it ultimately Snow's like, here, I'm here to learn from you, Sherlock. I want to figure things out and see what the threat to this world is and deal with it. And Sherlock, he's a little bit hoity-toity, but he's like, what, the fact that you even found me proves that you've got potential. I want to see the shape of I've seen the shape of the secret history, and I need to follow its traces. And he's like, you know what, you're right, this is your century. Because it is, right? The whole idea is that Snow was he's
the century baby.
Yeah. Right? So it's like, you're right, this is your century. I should probably, teach you what I can. There's a great bit here where he's like, how many languages do you speak? And Snow just says English. And then Sherlock says, that, my boy, is a matter of opinion, which I thought was a nice little dig. But yeah, he's like, hey, let's start talking about secrets. And Snow in his narration says, yeah, so I studied with the detective for 5 years until he finally died of old age. But I always had this thirst for secrets. I always was fascinated by the secrets, and it never went away. And that's how the issue ends, just with this black panel. There's a silhouette panel of him sitting in front of Sherlock as he's clearly being taught things, and then it just says century at the bottom in the black negative space. It just says the word century. So it's very interesting to do this flashback story here, because we're just getting to this idea of him remembering his history. So I would have to assume that when we get to the next issue, that something that he learned from Sherlock, or part of this secret history that he learned whilst investigating these characters, is going to be relevant to what they're doing in present day. next. But like you said, this is a cool thing because it's like this is the pop culture of the time that he's kind of interacting with, as opposed to the modern day pop culture when the comics written of like superheroes and all the modern shit that we think of. Not that this book's only stuck to that era. You know, we did pulpy sci-fi monsters in one issue. We've done, you know, all different eras of, you know, pulp types of fiction. Not the Tarantino pulp fiction, but you know, types of pulp fiction. So
well, they went to Monster Island, right, with Godzilla. All of
that's
those
true.
Too. So yeah. It plays with all that. The B movies, the John Woo type of detective stuff. So yeah, it's playing with all of these things that are in the public consciousness. Which, you know, at that time in the 1920s, it makes sense that it was Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. These are all literary figures. And I wonder if too this is Ellis kind of doing a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen kind of vibe from Moore.
That's what it felt when
that was the
caveat, when they were talking about a team. I was kind of getting, is this going to be some sort of League of Gentlemen kind of thing? And they never quite call it that or say anything like that, but it does kind of feel like they were kind of like the pre-planetary in a way, which is interesting. So no, I'm very, very intrigued by this development. I thought this was a really fun issue. I think that first half being almost like silent of just like finding monsters, realizing we're in Castle Frankenstein, him freezing the monsters, and then just like dealing with Dracula in that back half and like realizing that he's here to learn from Sherlock Holmes. Like, I think all of that was just such cool conceptually, which is kind of the biggest like weapon this book has had since issue 1. Is that so many, not all the issues, but the majority of the issues have had just such a cool concept where you realize what it's doing and you go, oh, this is a really neat idea for a story. And the idea that they're all tying together into some kind of like meta narrative about fiction and how we interact with fiction is really neat. So, but I really like this. Super fun. It's tying into like characters that I do like and some level care about, which is also a plus, you know. Obviously, I'm going to pop when I realize that we're doing Frankenstein stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. So, very, very neat, very neat. Yeah. Well, I may have to give this like a 9. Like it's really good stuff. I like how the all of the so there's gutters and panels in this. I like how there's kind of like an imperfect quality to the lines. They're not completely straight lines. They're kind of sketchy. And it kind of feels old school in a weird way, like we're doing, again, tying into the old horror characters. So again, there's a lot of little choices that feel very pointed. And Cassidy even went out of his way to give Snow slightly different hair because it's the past. It's 100 years ago, so we're doing. He's got kind of like hair that he's got slicked back a little bit, which is a little bit different to what he has normally in 2000 or whenever the new one's roughly set. So. No, good stuff. That's Planetary issue 13. I had a good time with it. And that takes me on to Gideon Falls issue 4. Obviously, Jeph Lemire. Yeah, I've been digging the build up of this book, and as far as like the books I'm reading goes, this is like the most serialized. Like Planetary has build up, of course. There's a lot of connections to everything that's in all of its issues, but I feel like Gideon Falls is completely serialized, where everything's just about building the ongoing narrative and the mystery of like what the Black Barn is and all that stuff. And that's what this issue starts with, because the last one, if you remember, ended with Father Fred talking to this doctor character, this Sutton character, who is part of this group, the Plowmen, and he's explaining. This issue starts with him saying, hey, all these bad things have happened in this town, and even if like they're more obvious sometimes than others, if you go digging into those stories about someone murdering this person or this thing happening to that person, there's always at some point some reference or mention of the Black Barn. Sometimes very obvious, sometimes it's more read between the lines, but it's always there. And the Plowmen were starting to try and be this like guardian against this evil, whatever it is. And we have this interesting concept here of Father Fred being a priest, literally someone who is religious and believes in a god and faith and all that stuff, who basically says, this is a bunch of nonsense, I can't believe any of this, I don't believe any of this. And one of these first pages is a 2-page layout where all of this explanation and debate between the two characters takes place around a cross in the middle of the page. There's like a panel in the middle that's in the shape of a Christian cross. And everything kind of spans out from there. So they're really pointing this out, that this is a man of faith denying something that people are taking on faith. And it's something that comes up again later when he's talking to the sheriff, where when he's regurgitating all of what he's heard from this character about the plowman and the black barn, and she's like, yeah, I've heard these stories, it's a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of fairy tales. But she turns around and says, I don't really buy the fairy tale that your team are selling either, and kind of like, you know, throws that in his face. And it's kind of this like, hey, people are saying they believe in something and it's just not what you believe in. So it's kind of challenging that a little bit, which is interesting. So you know, the art layouts here were really great. And Father Fred says, you know, I'm a man of God, not science fiction, and walks out and kind of just not really, you know, take it seriously. So yeah. But you know, the Doctor does try to point out, like, hey, like, you know, like, I've never seen the Black Bar myself, but you have, and after all, isn't believing something when you've not seen it part of what faith is? And the priest says, oh, I'm starting to wonder that myself. So, you know, I'm liking kind of like them poking at his, like, you know, his faith, and like him having this crisis of conscience and dealing with this. And then we go back to Dr. Zhu, who is like still dealing with what she's seen. And there's a phenomenal sequence here where there's just a quiet few panels, like there's just these 4 like horizontal panels going down the page of her, like, you know, putting her toothbrush back and turning on the water. But then when she like she's washing her face, and she rubs her face with a towel, and she brings her head up and she sees in the mirror the black barn, right? And the mirror is completely red. It's all red and black. And it kind of scares the shit out of her. And she turns the light out quickly in fear. And the art layouts were fantastic here because they were all straight before, but now they're kind of like, you know, at an angle as if she's kind of tilted. And it's like, you know, things are getting kind of tense. And when she turns the light back on and she looks back into the mirror, she sees a man in a workshop. And you would presume this is inside the Black Barn, but you don't know for sure. But that's what you think you're seeing here. And the panels really start to get weird here. It almost looks like she's getting into the Phantom Zone, right? You know how in the Superman the movie you get like the diamond shape and they're in the Phantom Zone? It almost looks like that at the bottom of this page, where she's looking and comprehending that she's looking at this person working at something at a table in a workshop. And then the 2-page spread that happens after this, how do I even describe this? It's like, so what the events that happen in this 2-page spread or 2-page layout is that she is staring at this person in the mirror, and it's all presented in cubes, right? There's these cubes where the left of the cube, so if you can see 3 sides of the cube at all times, right? And the left side of the cube is her reaction, and she's reaching out her hand, she's saying no or whatever. The right hand side of the cube, you see the back of this man working in the workshop, and then the bottom side of the cube is just the tools that are on the wall in this workshop. So focusing on these pliers, these saws, possible murder weapons, whatever you might want to call them. And as this plays out, it's basically like a giant like figure 8 or a helix or whatever you want to call it, of cubes. And the story of this moment plays out in these cubes going across the page, and they intersect until they eventually break and the cube falls apart on the other end. And all that really is that she's staring at this man inside what might be the Black Barn in this workshop, and he eventually turns around and notices that someone's watching, and he picks up like a mallet, and he's coming towards the mirror with a mallet. But as he's doing this, she's picking up like a bottle of, like, I don't know, perfume or hand wash, whatever it is, something in the bathroom. And at the end, the cube breaks because she throws this at the mirror and smashes the mirror, and that's how this ends. But this is a horror movie sequence. This is a sequence where she sees this creepy guy in this barn working with these tools at a table. He turns around and sees her watching through the mirror. He's coming towards her with a weapon, and then she smashes the mirror, and that seems to like end it. But I cannot get over the thrill of like because I had to, like, I mean, maybe this would be a negative in most comics where you say, oh, I had to stop and think about how this story was being told to me because it's such an unusual presentation for this 2-page layout. And then the background's just red, and it's like red like city from above, and then there's like a sort of like barrier, and then it's just red like sky as if we're getting into another world. That's the background of this 2-page thing. But I actually had to stop and think about, how do I read this page? And normally that would be a bad thing because you're like, oh, it's breaking the flow. But this was such like a weird like presentation of how to tell this story, and it was making me think about why is it being presented in this cube form. I mean, the best way I can describe it is that it's showing you that this is 2 different worlds, it's 2 different sides of the same thing. So by having these cubes, and one side is her side and one side is his side, it's showing that they're both parts of some spectrum or some multiverse or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's a barrier between two worlds here, and she was very dangerously close to like being affected. Like, you know, could he have smashed through the mirror and came into her world? Could he have harmed her? I don't know. It's kind of hard to say right now. But this was such a great representation that is unique to comics. Like, you know, so often when I'm talking about comic book art, I'm talking about how they present a scene, I'll compare it to movies. I'll talk about cinematography. I'll talk about editing. I'll talk about how this is kind of like the comic book version of that. I don't know if there could be a movie version of this page. I think it would have to be very, very different to get the same effect across by someone who knows what they're doing to achieve the same effect. Because as a comic book, it challenges you to kind of like try and figure out how it's actually telling the story. And then once you get it and you're sort of paying attention to kind of like how it's playing out, it's very thrilling because you realize, like, you get this kind of like excitement as you realize, oh, this is what's happening in this page. So I can't compliment this page enough. It's phenomenal stuff. Really, really good. And then after that, we get the scene where the priest goes over to the sheriff at her house, and she's in her civvies. She's not like on duty or anything. And he's like, hey, I went to talk to this Dr. Sutton character. He gave me this file with all this Black Barn stuff. And she laughs it off. Is like, yeah, I've heard all these stupid stories, blah, 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 blah. And he's over here, one, because to tell her that one of her own deputies is part of this plowman, which she did not know. And she's very, oh, I'll have to have a talk with him about that. But he also says that the one thing he kind of agrees with Sutton on, though, is that he doesn't think that Father Tom's just a murderer, right? Because that's the thing. Like, Doc Sutton, when he was talking about this previous priest who was part of their group, he's like, I don't believe he's just a murderer. I don't think he just killed some woman for no reason. That doesn't make sense. Like, he was influenced or controlled by something from the Black Barn. This is something connected to that. And Father Fred's like, hey, the one thing I agree with him on is that I don't think Father Tom just killed someone. That doesn't seem to fit right. And that's why he's still coming to talk to her and investigating it, if you want to call it that. Anyway, as they're chatting, and she brings her whole thing about his fairy tale, she doesn't really believe in it either. She gets a call that there's something to go look into. And she's leaving, grabbing her gun and saying, bye, Father. But then she's like, actually, wait a minute. He said, is there anything you can do to help? Actually, can you drive? I've had a few drinks. Because she was drinking beer the entire scene that he was there. So he's like, okay, sure. So he's actually driving the cop car to the next scene when we get there. But we don't go there first. We go to Norton back in the city. Norton, our troubled patient who's been knowing about the barn for years. He's in an alleyway looking for rubbish, as he does, in the rain. And then he hears some noises, and it's actually Dr. Zoo, but he grabs her as she comes around the corner, and we get this scene where she basically says, look, Norton, I saw something else. Something else happened. I saw the barn again, and I'm scared. And this scene's all taking place in the rain, so there's rain dripping down her face, there's rain dripping down his face. And then the scene, or the panel, the full page background where she says to him, it scares me even more now, and he says it's going to be okay as he holds her hands. The background of this panel is a red skull, as like you're representing the danger. But he hugs her, so there's kind of this sweet moment between Doctor and patient, because she obviously was very skeptical and didn't believe him for all of the first 3 issues until she saw the barn at the end of issue 2, and even after that she was like, oh, I'm being delusional. Something's not right here. Clearly this is not a thing. But this incident where she saw this man in the mirror coming for her is obviously really sobered her up. So I'm loving the progression on that side of things because it feels like a proper horror movie. So we go back to the sheriff and Father Fred, who go out to the house, which turns out to be the school bus driver who was introduced in issue 1, who said hello in issue 2 to the priest. The deputy who was part of the plowman was here inside, and the wife is sitting outside, and she's like, I was told to call you. He's inside, but she's not really speaking very clearly. And the sheriff's like, "What do you mean? Do you mean my deputy?" And she's very vague. So the issue ends with the sheriff going inside, and the Father Fred follows her in, even though he was told not to. And as they get towards the door, one of the panels represents this door as bright red. And again, red's only used in this book when it's representing something from the Black Barn or the evil that's going on. And it's really, it pops against all the muted colors of the rest of the art. It's very intentional. And they say, oh God, and we get a full page spread of what they're seeing, which appears to be this bus driver sitting on the floor with a mallet, which maybe connects it to that previous stuff, even though I don't think he was the one that was in the mirror. I think it was it was definitely a bigger guy in the mirror that Dr. Zoo was seeing. But he's holding a mallet in his hand. There's blood on the floor, and seemingly the deputy, presumably, is dangling upside down. We only see him from the back, but he's dangling upside down, dripping blood, maybe implying that he's been malleted to death by the bus driver. And the bus driver says, "Hello, Father, I've been waiting for you." And that's how the issue ends. Like, he was expecting him to be here. So, look, this was a big ending. It was violent. It was brutal. The horror and suspense of, like, Dr. Zoo seeing stuff in the mirror, which is very... I don't know if I might call it David Lynch-esque. I mean, at the very least, it feels like we're doing, like, very... like, not funny Freddy Krueger. At the very least, we're doing something that feels like some force is coming, some evil being or force is coming for these people. It's infected the world. And her experience of seeing this guy in the mirror was a really, really cool scene. Maybe my favorite scene of the entire book so far, out of these 4 issues. So I'm loving that. I'm loving the building of the mythology in the town and the plowmen and them talking about it more straight up. But I think... I've really went back and forth as to which side of the story I like more. Sometimes I like the town stuff more. Sometimes I like the Norton and Zoo stuff more. I think this issue, it was definitely the Dr. Zoo stuff with Norton that I liked the best. But I'm loving the build to this. I'm so intrigued by where it's going, and it's thrilling as I'm reading it, which is maybe the best thing I can say about it. So loving this, and obviously the idea of this theme of faith and challenging, like, the father not believing that this stuff exists is kind of interesting, since his entire life is built around faith. So I'm loving them sort of poking at that as well. This is like... This is maybe a 9.5. This was a phenomenal issue. Like, I was in love. Like, that scene with Dr. Zoo was phenomenal. Like, phenomenal.
So you said not funny Freddy Krueger, so basically the remake that no one talks about.
Well, but good.
Yeah, I know. I said to throw that dig in there.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that was maybe a bad thing to compare it to. I just meant like a supernatural force that, like, we're sort of tapping into.
No, I know what you mean.
Because I could almost compare, like, her looking at the mirror and seeing this guy who's coming towards the mirror is maybe more Ringu than anything else. It kind of felt like, you know, Sadako, like, coming from the well in the ring to the TV.
The important thing is it feels like they're hiding something, right? And now it's coming up, regardless of, you know, they want it to or not, right? Like, it's coming back. So I get the Freddy there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the ring type stuff, Ringu, that also. But yeah, I might have to pick up this in physical to read it. You know, Lemire and Sorrentino art is going in. The more you talk about it, the more I'm getting into the mystery.
Oh yeah, the art's phenomenal. Can't get enough of it. So yeah, there's a great, you know, the layouts are great here again. It feels like everything's very, like, intentional. Like, it feels like there's never, like, a normal page where it's just like, oh, here's just the art because this is what typical comic art looks like. It always feels like there's thought going into the layouts, the use of the color red versus all the other colors. Everything always feels like it's doing something very important or special to tell the story. So 9.5, love this issue. Probably the best of the 4 so far, and none of them have been weak, so it's been a very good series. So that is Gideon Falls issue 4. So there you go. That'll bring an end to the book reviews for the week. So that'll take us out to the final part of the show. We'll pick our favorite panel / moment of the week, favorite art, favorite cover, and I guess we'll just pick a book of the week because we only had 3 new books really. So you know, no top 5 this week, but that'll do the trick. So Matt, what was your panel / moment of the week?
I mean, there was a ton in Absolute Batman 2020, the annual. 2025.
And year 1, honestly, it's between those two, really.
Yeah, right, or year 1. So, do I go with the Two-Face one that gave me such a chuckle in year 1, right? Or do I go with the crying Batman at the end of Daniel Warren Johnson's story? I'll go for the sake of levity. I'll go with Batman and Robin year 1 with Harvey looking over, going, "Ha, nice." that was a good laugh this week.
Sure. I'm not gonna lie. The one-winged angel popped me, like,
Yeah, right.
because it was like there's a process of realizing that was happy, because he got him up on his shoulders, and I'm like, I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, oh, he's up on his, that's a funny position. And then the next panel was like the bringing him down, and I went, wait a minute.
Just dump him.
Yeah, I gotta go with that. I think I gotta go with that. So very good. And then for cover of the week, obviously we don't have a ton of choices relatively to normal. So yeah, I don't have the main cover for Batman and Robin Year One is very solid. It's Samnee, typical stuff. I think if I'm to pick though, I'm probably going to go with the black and white variant from Dragata for Absolute Batman. Just nice and simple, really, more than anything. You got a pick?
Fair. So I want to bring up one from Kryptonite.
Sure.
Spectrum, right? It is the Nimit Malavia variant, which is, it looks like someone's drawing, right, with the color pencil. So being that that's how they were dealing with things in that issue, I thought that was a nice variant. Like, it's a variant that actually means something to the story. But no, my pick's gonna be the regular cover for Absolute Batman, which is just Batman and his big old bat axe against an army of masked white supremacists. Just like, it's not gonna end up well for them. It's just not.
Yeah, that's fair. Art of the week.
Oh, it's Samnee for Year One.
Yeah.
I can't. As good as the art was for the Absolute Batman annual, it's not just all one Daniel Johnson. Whereas Samnee just, it's been solid.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Warren Johnson, even though sometimes he does maybe over-exaggerate things here or there. But I do enjoy his art, and it works really well, especially for Absolute Batman's grittiness. That said, though, I don't think on a one-on-one he would ever win against Samnee for me. So it just is what it is. And not to discount Scalera's art for last Halloween either, which I thought was solid.
No,
so,
up there.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Okay, what was your book of the week, Matt? It's either Absolute Batman or Batman and Robin Year One. So which one is it?
I mean, I gave Batman and Robin Year One a higher score, so I'll go with that one. But they're both very good.
Yeah, tough for me. I give them both the same score, so I'm really kind of I think I'm leaning towards Absolute Batman Annual, just because it's like a bit more standalone and fresh and exciting, and I really like the Year One, and I think it's a great finale to the book. But Year One has been great as a whole, right? And I think the Absolute Batman Annual feels a bit more exciting as like a fresh voice on this book. It just feels a bit more, I don't know, special, I guess. So I'm going to say that, but it's very close. It doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things in this time. So that is that. So I will tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics for the first week in November. We have Absolute Superman issue 13, Batman issue 3, Absolute Green Lantern issue 8, DC KO Night Fight issue 1, so KO stuff rages on. Looking forward to that. We have Batgirl issue 13, Poison Ivy 38, Birds of Prey 27, which is the penultimate issue of Birds of Prey. We have GSA issue 13, which starts off the Year 1 arc, so that'll be interesting. There's Adventures of Superman, the Book of Kal-El, issue 3, or sorry, Book of L, not Kal-El, sorry, I'm adding in extra bits.
Yes.
There's Cheetah in Cheshire, Rob the Justice League, issue 4. There's Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes, issue 1, which we will be doing because that won the vote for November.
Hey!
So
I love finding out stuff.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier, Matt, but yeah, that one. Well, I actually didn't know it was coming next week, though. It's just because we hit it and I went, I better mention this because it's in this list. There's also...
I'm not going to be mad at Harley and Ivy together. Like, we'll see.
Yeah, and it won pretty decisively. This is the first time it was a decisive win. Usually it's pretty close between something and Batgirl, whereas more people definitely wanted us to try this issue 1 this time, so... we'll give that a try next week. And then Gotham Academy first year issue 2 is out, as well as Teen Titans Go issue 9, and then there's your usual facsimiles and reprints, et al. So it's a pretty beefy week, which is one of the reasons why we definitely did an episode for this week 5, because we knew that if we added more books into next week, it would be a nightmare. So we have a good healthy double digits of books, so join us next week for that. And I mentioned the Patreon vote there. Yeah, our patrons voted for Harley and Ivy Life of Crime. Or Life and Crime, forgive me. Issue 1, that vote for one of a patron's pick every month is part of what we do now. There's usually a vote in the last week or two of the month for the following month, as well as, of course, a classic single issue review every month. We're doing Batgirl Year 1 right now, and issue 3 of that just went out for patrons and YouTube members in the past week. YouTube members also get the same things. Patrons also get the show a little bit early, so if you want to support the show and help keep it coming, you get a little bit of extra stuff as a reward. But that is, thanks to everyone who already does support us. It's greatly appreciated. It does help to keep the show coming, and that pretty much wraps us up. Other than just the usual stuff you can do. If you can't afford to be a patron, that's fine. Just like, subscribe, ding the bell, give us 5 stars in your podcast app. All these things do help out a bunch. So thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.